Okay, wonderful. Uhuru, and thank you everyone for coming tonight. The Green Party of St. Louis organized this webinar to draw attention to the mounting wave of repression that the US government is waging inside this country and around the world. The Biden administration is fully responsible for opening one of the most repressive eras in US history. We chose the Steve Biko quotation, "There's no freedom in silence," as the title for this webinar for a reason. Steve Bantu Biko made this statement at the height of the liberation struggle against the terror regime of South African apartheid. On September 17th, it's been 46 years since he was brutally murdered in police custody after ignoring an internal ban that was supposed to silence his political activity. What Biko's call for action should mean for us is that silence is not an option in a situation where people are being targeted for their beliefs, political conviction, and what matters to them, even if we ourselves are not immediately affected. It also means that we ourselves cannot be free as long as we don't speak out, no matter whether we remain silent out of fear or indifference. Touch one, touch all. It's not only the fact that we could be next if we dare speaking out against conditions of colonial oppression that can be found everywhere. We have a political and moral obligation and responsibility. In our current historical time, we have to stand in solidarity with a growing number of people and organizations who are being persecuted for asserting their First Amendment right to free speech and for resisting the constant attacks against their wish to live self-determined and peaceful lives in dignity. Our green vision in the Green Party US platform includes building communities that nurture families, generate good jobs and housing, provide public services, creating cities and towns that educate children, encourage recreation, and preserve natural and cultural resources. And it is a vision. The African People's Socialist Party, now accused of being steered by the Russians, has been realizing their vision for what liberation looks like for half a century. The photo on our webinar announcement, taken at the ceremony dedicating housing for people who come out of prison, shows only one aspect of the Black Power blueprint to restore African communities destroyed through colonial oppression. The St. Louis Green Party supports these efforts as a contribution to reparations owed to African people. All this has come under attack when the FBI raided the private homes and offices of the Uhuru Movement last summer, followed by economic sanctions and bogus indictments of the leaders being Russian agents, charges that were supposed to stymie the African People's Socialist Party's goal of attaining political liberation and economic development for African people. Earlier this year, the vision of a free society a society free of police brutality and surveillance, came under attack at what has become known as Cop City in Atlanta, Georgia. It is also an assault on the right to preserve nature, framing protesters and even supporters with ludicrous RICO charges. In Tampa, Florida, students who oppose the annihilation of Black literature and history are being criminalized and dragged to court. From indigenous pipeline protesters over political prisoners who have been languishing in U.S. prisons for nearly half a century, whistleblowers like Julian Assange, to anti-colonial movements in what is dubbed the Global South, we believe the Green Party and other freedom-loving people have to stand in solidarity with all those persecuted and oppressed. With this webinar, we want to educate, open the discussion on how we can prevent the history of the 1960s from repeating itself, and how in this historic moment, when the United States imperialism is clearly on the decline, shakier than ever, we can take action in support of the resurgence of anti-colonial movements in this country and elsewhere around the world. So before we get to our speakers, we would like to play a short video from the Burning Spear about the FBI raids that attacked the African People's Socialist Party and Solidarity Movement to give more context. So Joe, if you can please start that video now.
This is the FBI. You have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant for...
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need?
Need one.
I don't know.
Oh, it's all better with money.
All
Don't
of
take it.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru Movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Thank you, Joe, for playing that, for giving important context to this. And we're start to hear speakers now, and all of the speakers will speak for 15 minutes, followed by comments and questions. First, we are honored to welcome Akile Anai to discuss the African People Socialist Party's fight back in the context of mounting colonial oppression, and to give an update on the September 28th court hearings in Tampa, Florida. Akile is the Director of Media and Communications for the African People's Socialist Party. Akile was also characterized as the fourth unindicted co-conspirator and one of the targets of the FBI raids in July 2020. Director Akile, thank you for coming. And if you could please start by telling us a little bit of your background and how you became involved in the movement.
Uhuru, Lauren, and Uhuru want to really appreciate the St. Louis Green Party for hosting this event, and also for being one of the first organizations, certainly locally in St. Louis, to come out and stand with the Uhuru Movement and oppose the attacks that were made against Chairman Amalia Shatella, the African People's Socialist Party, and the entire Black liberation movement. This discussion is certainly, a part of, this continued relationship of, genuine solidarity with, the Black liberation struggle. So really want to appreciate this meeting and the St. Louis Green Party, Comrade Angelica, and also really want to recognize and salute my leadership, because when I talk about where I got my start, it started literally with Chairman Amalia Shatella, who was born in St. Petersburg, Florida, and has been, a part of the Black Power movement. This is, not something that he just popped up doing over the last several years, but it's something that he's dedicated his life to, actually 60 years. And he got his start right here in St. Petersburg, Florida. That's where I'm born, where I was raised, and was, fortunate to have been born in a period of time where there was intense struggle happening right here in this city. Just 2 days before, or actually on October 24th, I was born October 22nd, 1996. And on October 24th, they murdered an African 18 years old by the name of Tyron Lewis. The police did. And it sparked these rebellions by the African working class community right here. And my dad was, a part of the movement, at this time, and was actually one of the forces of the community that came out and worked to put out fires that were being started by the St. Pete police, as well as different police forces, agencies, from neighboring counties, cities, and things like that. So the city of St. Pete deployed something like 300 different types of colonial state forces, and used every ounce of tear gas that they had in the city at that time to prevent the Uhuru Movement from conducting a regular weekly meeting. And this meeting was important because it was discussing the not guilty verdict that had come out, for the killer cops that was responsible for the murder of Tyron Lewis. It was just like a Sunday rally, which some of you on this call might be familiar with. It was that same kind of process. So imagine coming to the Uhuru House for a Sunday rally, regardless of what the topic was going to be discussing, and your community being totally blocked off, roped off. People cannot access the building. It is surrounded by police. People are being harassed, brutalized, told they have to go home. And people are trapped inside this building, including Chairman Amali himself, trapped inside this building as they spray it down with tear gas. And people are having a difficult time locating an exit, are, literally in coughing fits. And they're using these canisters to try to start fires, to set fires to the building. So this is in 1996. And I really owe, just that leadership that the party has been providing, the leadership of the chairman, all that time, for even my entry point into political life. And even though I was only, 2 days old when this was all unfolding, the fact is, because my father had a relationship to this, he was a part of this movement, he had the leadership and the theory of African internationalism to guide him, he was able to instill those same things within me. So it really is kind of like a full circle moment, coming in and being a part of the African People's Socialist Party, a leading member of the Uhuru Movement. And it's also something I wanted to point out to just illustrate that the attacks on the Uhuru Movement, did I freeze? Can you hear me?
You're good on our end.
Okay. Sorry, I froze and I didn't see anything else moving. Okay. But I raised this because what happened on July 29th of 2022 is not the first instance where the colonial state has attacked this movement. And, on July 29th of 2022, they said it was because of Russia. Well, in what was the explanation in 1996? And they had, made this assault on our Uhuru House and attempted to assassinate our leaders, including Chairman Amali, in 1996. And they didn't, need the excuse of a Russian then. This is just something that happens and has historically happened to the Black Revolution, certainly in this country and everywhere that it has manifested throughout the world. So that's a really important thing to understand, even with regard to context of the attacks made on us in this period, because it's not based on any explanation they've given. And, for the most part, people are pretty capable at this juncture in history to see through the lies and know that it's bogus. But it's even more important to say that it has nothing to do with Russia. It has everything to do with attacking Black people who are struggling, who dare to struggle to be free from a system that was built off of and is sustained by the colonial plunder, the loot, the genocide in which that system was created. And that if you have a system built on slavery and you have a whole process that legalizes slavery, then the slave trying to be free from slavery is illegal. You've made that now illegal. You've made somebody fighting to end slavery in a legal process. That's the thing that we're running up against now, is that you have this law, you have and this attack being made on us under the banner of law, which is defined by them, which ensures that Black people will never be free, from colonialism. So that's just a little info about just kind of my entry point into political life. It was, again, kind of this thing that was inherited, I guess you would say. And certainly when I turned 18, when I graduated high school, just before that, Mike Brown had been murdered in Ferguson, Missouri. I saw it on the TVs and, you know, from where I was located, and, you know, just thinking about like going off to college and what was my future going to be, it just made total sense that my future would be, you know, struggling for the freedom and for the freedom of my people, and that trying to entertain anything else was simply mean just kind of like, you know, putting my head in the sand and pretending as though I don't know, you know, about this world and how it came to be this way, and that, you know, it'll only change if we do something about it. So that kind of explains a little bit of, you know, how I came into political life, and really the ramifications of the leadership of the chairman over decades. And with that, I also want to just appreciate and salute my leadership, Chairman Amalia Shatella. And I wanted to introduce the call to the Black People's March on the White House, because I feel like it contains so much that we could say about the importance of this case. But before doing that, and I probably won't be able to get through the whole thing, so I'll probably just read the demands towards the end of my presentation. But you know, I just really wanted to express that. I really wanted to just express the real importance of getting behind this campaign and, you know, using our voice, using everything that we have at our fingertips to be able to demand the charges be dropped against the Uhuru 3, and to end the attacks that are being made on the Uhuru movement and similar attacks being made on, you know, various types of people, from diplomats to journalists to college students. That this represents, when you look out, you know, turn on the TV, you know, read the news, or, you know, you can see and witness the crisis, the profound crisis of this social system. And it is in complete and total disrepair. And the fact is, we have to acknowledge how and why it got to be this way. And when you get to, you know, the core of it all, you look at the fact that you had an entire system, a world system, not something that the US in isolation over here, you know, just worked on, separate from the rest of the world. No, it's a part of a whole world system carved through colonialism, through slavery, through genocide. And those forces, who the colonized forces, those who have, you know, bore the brunt, those who are oppressed and exploited under this social system, are challenging that system right now. And that's why this crisis we see is happening. It's not even because, you know, there is some kind of disagreement among the ruling class. No, you have an entire system now that has dominated the lives of people for centuries, coming, you know, under total assault. Rightfully so. The people are demanding to be free. The people demand their own land, their own resources, be able to determine their own destiny. African people are saying we have agency, that we want to chart our own course, that we want access to the land and resources that have been forcibly stolen from us. That's the kind of thing that's, you know, this colonial social system is being confronted with every single day. So this is creating extreme crisis. And right at the helm of that is the hegemon, the one who's been able to enjoy a certain kind of peace or leadership over the entire colonial project. And that's, of course, the US, the empire. And all of this is being challenged. And you see all kinds of political trials happening every single day. You know, this infighting by the colonial ruling class, you know, and all of it is this, you know, this work to an attempt to keep us in the past, to keep everything, you know, as it was, which means that they continue to enjoy the colonial loot, you know, that they're extracting from, you know, peoples around the world, and they continue to be able to benefit off the labor and the resources produced by somebody else. That's the kind of relationship and system that they're trying to maintain, and that's becoming extremely difficult because that whole process is being disrupted, and those who make up that pedestal, make up the foundation, are, you know, refusing to serve in that capacity anymore. And this is what the Uhuru movement has done, practically speaking. This is what all of the economic institutions represent, is African people, you know, taking back the power, political and economic power in our own hands to develop our own community towards our own interests. And that's a serious problem when you have a system that requires literally the exploited labor and resources of Africa and African people, including inside this country. So this is what, helps to define, first of all, what's happening in the world, and two, why they would attack the African People's Socialist Party. Why would they attack the Uhuru Movement and Chairman Amalia Shachela? It's because just like in the 1960s, there was a vanguard that stood at the front of all the political struggle that we saw happening. And at the time in the 60s, it could have been considered the Black Panther Party as the vanguard. And we saw what happened to the Black Panther Party. We saw what happened to leaders of the Black Panther Party and, similar organizations and movements that existed during this period of time. We know people who are in prison today as a consequence from the struggle that was being made in the 1960s for Black power, for self-determination, on this trajectory of anti-colonial struggle that was being made. And the US government used everything that they could to crush that. And they fabricated charges. They put people on trial. They disrupted entire lives. We know, notably, they killed King, they killed Malcolm X, they killed Fred Hampton. So this is a whole entire war that was made on Black people in this country, and they were, collaborating with other forces in the world to be able to, destroy the likes of Thomas Sankara and Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba. So this is, the kind of struggle that African people were making in this country and around the world, colonized people. We can talk about Leonard Peltier, indigenous man who is in prison today for fighting, for the liberation of his land and the return of the stolen land back to the indigenous people. So this is the kind of violence, the kind of attacks that we've historically been met with. And again, all of it is a part of attempting to keep us in the past. And we have advanced our struggle. And we're saying that we're not going back, that every inch of democratic space that Black people have literally shed blood for, that's not going back. And that democratic space includes being able to utilize the First Amendment to freedom of speech, being able to say what it is that we want to say and advocate for ourselves in our own interest. We should have the right to do that. We fought to have the right to do that. Nobody paid a greater price to vote in this country than Black people. We should be able to use the electoral process without being persecuted and accused of being Russian agents or something to that effect. So this is something that we absolutely have to get behind. It's imperative in this moment in history where things are changing, fundamental changes are being made, and we cannot sit on the sidelines of history. We have to be a part of changing this world. We have to be enthusiastic and excited about the fact that, that what we know up to now is, all coming undone, and that there is opportunity now, there's room, there's space to create an entirely different future where nobody has to live at the expense of anybody else. That's what we have the ability to do right now. We can knock out all the cynics who say it's not possible. It's possible. We're doing it right now. As we have this discussion, we are making this a reality. So it's really important for us to, again, not stand on the sidelines of history, but to actively be a part of that. And that means at this juncture to defend the Black community's right to freedom of speech. That means, not allowing for this case to proceed, because what it does is it sets a precedent. They attack us, they're successful in their attack, they've taken the right to freedom of speech for everybody now. And that's something that we really have to understand. And this is something that the oral arguments that happened on September 28th allowed us to get into. Our attorneys, brilliant attorneys for the Uhuru 3, developed a motion to dismiss and was submitted, to the judge to have the whole case dismissed. And let's not even go to trial, because going to trial is dangerous. It sets going to trial sets a precedent, for what it is that this government can do. So there was a motion to dismiss that was filed in July. The prosecutors, the US government, responded, and then we had the ability to counter argument. And in that, we requested the ability to make oral arguments in front of the judge. And in normal proceedings, the expectation is that they just go to trial. The judge doesn't even bother themselves with it. They just say, let's just go to trial. But in this instance, they read the motion to dismiss, they read what was submitted, and they determined, yes, let's have oral arguments. So that was in and of itself a victory, for us. And then on September 28th in Tampa, Florida, the Uhuru 3, as well as the Uhuru 3 attorneys, and a flood of people from all throughout the state of Florida, some people flying in from California, Maryland, came. We packed the courthouse so much that they had to turn people away because it was overflowing. And so the judge had to sit there and hear the argument being made by our attorneys about how this is a dangerous, precedent-setting case, an attack on the right to freedom of speech. And, the prosecutor, got up there, bluffed, and was absolutely deflated by the end of this hearing because their argument is so weak. It's so clear. They have nothing. There's, we haven't done anything. And we just exuded the kind of, just confidence in our victory and in our innocence. And our attorneys presented a brilliant case. And the judge, which we don't, trust the courts or, anything like that, which is why we have this counteroffensive in the form of this campaign, because we're mobilizing masses of people. The people are the determining factor. That's why we pack the courthouse, because the people are the determining factor. The judge has to look out, not at just, the Uhuru 3 and their lawyers. They have to look out at a room full of people who are saying, this is just the beginning. And if you intend to pursue this, there's going to be more of us, and it's going to continue to be more of us. We're going to continue to grow and, raise not just awareness, but raise struggle against this attack that's being made. So it was very powerful. The magistrate who's making a recommendation to the judge presiding over this case ended by saying, that our attorneys did a very great job in preparing this argument, citing necessary, case references, and by the end said recognizing that he recognized that this is a very important issue, and that freedom of speech is extremely critical, important. And so that was kind of the ending note that the judge left it on. We do not know yet the outcome of this. It could be days from now. It could be, weeks. We just know that it has to be done before the Uhuru 3 are set to go to trial, which, as we understand, is in February. So, we're looking forward to be able to give updates on that. But the last thing, that I just want to mention, before my time is up, is the Black People's March on the White House. All of this is culminating into the Black People's March on the White House that's happening on November 4th. This is the 15th annual Black People's March on the White House, hosted by the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. This year, it is co-sponsored by the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition, the anti-colonial free speech movement, and it consists of 40 plus organizations, that are united under the anti-colonial free speech movement, under the banner of the leadership of anti-colonial forces and colonized people ourselves, around this critical question. And it's going to be a mobilization like none other. It is not, your Democratic Party march, on the White House that pretty much has you exhausting your resources and getting you nowhere except telling you to continue to vote for them, even though they continue time and time again to not do anything, for the people. So this is not that march. This is a historic mobilization that's going to be occurring. And we're bringing all of these issues, to the forefront. The Uhuru 3, the demand to drop the charges, the Tampa 5, Julian Assange, Alex Saab, Leonard Peltier, all of the African political prisoners locked up in this country. We're bringing all of that full force to the Black People's March in the White House. And we want you to be a part of that. We want you to connect with a contingent in your area to get to the White House, bring, hundreds, if not thousands of people to this mobilization. And we continue to apply the necessary pressure to make sure that our legal strategy is successful. Again, the people are the deciding factor, those who we can get to the mobilization to continue to show the growth of this movement, the expansion, which is the total opposite of what they intended to happen when they attacked us on July 29th. They thought people were going to be running for the hills. They thought we were going to go underground and be silent. They thought the same thing like that happened in the 60s where the Black movement was abandoned. They thought that was going to happen this time around, but it's a whole different period. And we see that the movement has only exploded as a consequence of what they've done to us, not retreated. As the chairman says, we are not retreating, we are building. So I really, really, really want to encourage everybody to get on the bus, or if there's a bus in your area, get on the bus. If you can organize a bus, to make that happen as well and get to November 4th. And I see links are being dropped into the chat, so please check out those links. And also on the website, you can read the full call to the Black People's March, and you can read the demands as well. Those are really important. I think there's like 8 demands there. So you're very clear about, you know, what it is that we're raising, why we're having this march, and the significance of it. So again, thank you to the St. Louis Green Party for having this event and allowing me to present. And yeah, I mean, all out to the Black People's March on the White House. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, drop the charges. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Akile. That was very powerful, and just again, it's so moving to hear about the relentlessness of the African People's Socialist Party for decades and the generational strength that has gone into the fight back. And that personal story also just really drove home the importance of solidarity being as relentless as well. That also just made me very excited about the march, and we are going to hear more about that now. So our next speaker is Lisa Davis, who we'd like to welcome. Lisa is the vice chair of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. Lisa is a longtime community activist out of Newark, New Jersey area, and is committed to the anti-colonial and anti-imperialist struggles of freedom and self-determination for African people and for all oppressed people. So Vice Chair Lisa, thank you for being here. And if you could please also start by letting us know how you found your way into the movement and came into political life.
Uhuru, and thank you so much. And Sister Director Akile, thank you for that very, very powerful summation and presentation. I find when I am listening to these presentations, you know, via Zoom, I have to sit on my hands because I want to scream. I want to be like, yes, 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 and shout out and do the call and response. That is such a major part of the Black cultural tradition. Again, my name is Lisa Davis, and what brought me into the movement was, I guess I'll start with knowing of 2 people that I went to school with in 2 different states that got their brains blown out by police. The first one was an 18-year-old young man back in the 70s, had just graduated high school, an Olympic hopeful, and he was a lifeguard. And over a traffic dispute with an officer, with the father of an officer, you know, and they happen to be white. And the father motions over to his son, and his son comes out of the house in plain clothes, and he blows his brains out. And then about 10 years later in Massachusetts, another young man that lived on the street with my cousin, I would be playing with him and everything, and he's in his 20s, and supposedly they said he was drinking and driving. This was on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, and they shot him, I think, 2 times in the chest, and then the officer goes over to the side of the car and unleashes 5 more bullets into his head. It's like, how many bullets does it take to kill somebody? So those were things that began to stir within me a little bit, but not compared to what I was to encounter, because I think then I was still living under the guise that things had changed so much. I am, a direct product of those who are fighting in the civil rights movement. And of course, you want to believe that, things had changed, that was in the past. And but I would see all these signs that wasn't true. And then when I graduated from college, and I come from a family, my father was a police officer. He had to retire early. My brother was currently a police officer. So my relationship with the police when I was growing up was that, it was of these Black officers, the Kingsmen, and they used to take us places and all of that kind of stuff. Of course, I have a completely different relationship to them now, but I would find myself at least 3 times being victimized by police brutality, although I was not physically hit, but still the brutality of armed people being so hostile to you. One happened to be over a train fare that I did not owe. And all these times, only thing I'm doing is something work related. And not that I believe that you have to be engaging in some kind of nefarious activity that would warrant the police to abuse you. But I just want to emphasize that these were your everyday activities in which you could not anticipate anything. Sometimes you can sit back and say, could I have done something differently? Maybe I shouldn't have been in that area. Maybe I was a little too loud or something like that. Or maybe I could have been high. You maybe were engaging in behavior that you could look back on and say, maybe I probably should not have done that. But for me, it was just everyday existence, just being alive. And I found myself, being cursed at, degraded by 3 armed police officers in New Jersey Transit. Conductor falsely accused me of theft. I didn't steal anything, could prove it. And that was an encounter that involved that day about 9 men. The New Jersey Transit conductor who was acting so vicious and screaming, and the other men who watched it. I'm a Black woman, most of them were white. And then the police officers who came to the scene, and I'm in this all-white neighborhood, and they just were brutal toward me, although they did not physically hit me. Then another time I'm in Newark, New Jersey, this time predominantly Black area. I got a jacket on that says, "Let the music play gospel." A rather petite woman, she asked me about this jacket. She also happens to be Black, and we're talking. The next thing we know, we find ourselves being grabbed off the street. And this time, it's a Latino officer and Black officers. And I'm like, what's going on? We were just talking down Newark, And then the last time in New York, I was going to work and I was hit by a minivan, and white guy hit me. White officers showed up on the scene, and they wrote up a police report, where they didn't record that I was hit by a minivan. They let the guy get away with hitting him. When I'm in the ambulance being looked at, everybody took off. So I just wanted to give that as a brief background, because it showed that I had to learn that there were no systems in place that protected Black people. There were none. I mean, one of the cases I went through the courts, and the arguments that protected these officers were as egregious and even more so than the incident that happened to me, because I saw where they were justifying officers who were blowing people's brains out. And this was in the 90s, because they thought that, they said they thought a beer bottle was a gun, and they were getting away with it. I saw the state empowering them. In my particular case, the Attorney General for the state of New Jersey argued that there was nothing unconstitutional with anybody who worked for the state writing up false police reports or calling people, the N-word, but they put that in writing, in the full spelling of that. So that began to show me that although I had considered myself, involved in the Black revolutionary struggle, I was always attracted to that. When I was in college, I was, involved with the Black Student Union, but I had graduated thinking, oh my gosh, now I can focus on my career, which I wanted to be an actress because I did my part. But, I had to learn the lessons that I had to learn. And I saw from that the only thing that gave me any comfort was being connected to the Black liberation struggle. And there had been a bit of a void, a bit of a pause. At least I wasn't directly involved. But with the murder of Amadou Diallo, and many of you probably heard of him, an African immigrant directly from the continent, and I think they shot 42 bullets into him, and he was just going into his apartment, and he was reaching for his wallet, and they said they thought it was a gun. But that, to me, was a clarion call that we needed to be the solutions we were looking for, because this system was not protecting anyone. And I had said to myself, I would never again become disconnected from the movement ever again. That was my protection, and that's the only thing that gave me any kind of solace. So from there, I just began to just be committed, because the only thing that the Black liberation that Black people have, and I shouldn't say the only thing, because this to me is the most powerful thing that we could have, is the Black liberation struggle. And that has always been, I heard James Small say that the Black liberation struggle is our social immune system, and it certainly is. So through my just every day, my determination that this could not be a movement, this had to be a way of life, and I had to rewire my whole way of relating to this world. And at some point, I had the wonderful opportunity of hearing a talk by someone named Amali Yesitala, and it was so empowering and so enlightening to me. And also I had begun to read and follow the Black Agenda Report. Our brother Glenn Ford, who transitioned about 2 years ago, but he was one of the co-founders of the Black is Back Coalition. So long story short, I knew I was going to be a part of this. I knew I wanted to be a part of it. And I have no regrets about it at all. And working within the Uhuru Movement has just really helped to redefine my whole relationship to this world and to understand it in ways that, whereas I went from saying that, okay, I want to change this system. Now I don't want to change nothing about it. It needs to be gone. But now I went from that to saying I have to have complete control over my existence. African people, Black people have the right to have complete control over everything that we do. We define it, we decide it, we, set the parameters, we define it. That did not happen for us at all. So, and we also believe that not just for Black people or African people, I use the terms interchangeably because we are African, but not just for African people, but for all oppressed people. And so the Black is Back Coalition was formed about approximately 15 years ago. And I was just so proud to be a part of it because the full name of the coalition is the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparation. So we are proud to rebirth, so to speak, the Black liberation struggle because it is one of the most righteous struggles in the world, but definitely within the United States. And this is not to take away from any of the struggles of the indigenous people or any of the other people who have been oppressed throughout the world. But the truth of the matter is that anything that anybody can say that is anything that is correct about the United States or living in here, they have to come back to the Black liberation struggle. They have to come back to everything, any kind of justice that happened. It is directly tied to this struggle. So we were so proud to base, the Black is Back Coalition on the Black liberation struggle. And we didn't run from anything. Barack Obama was one of the reasons why that that kind of brought the Black is Back Coalition into existence, because people had the foresight to recognize that this was a new face of imperialism, of colonialism. And this time it's in the face of Barack Hussein Obama. And it was also around the time when they wanted to build up AFRICOM. So we were always, in terms of the Black is Back Coalition, always talking about these issues, always challenging imperialism, always talking about reparations. And the chairman, he has not altered his speech at all. At all. He hasn't altered his position. I mean, of course, things develop deeper, and when you get more information, when you get more information, you're of course are going to incorporate that information that you get. But in terms of the position, in terms of the principles, it has not altered. So I've been working with this coalition for about, like I said, 15 years. And from day number one, it was anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, talking about U.S. imperialism, talking about these horrible, vicious wars, and also talking about liberation, African liberation, self-determination, but not just self-determination by African people. We are against the oppression of people no matter what. We are we are for the liberation of all oppressed people. But of course, being Black, being African, that puts us in a unique position to be on the right side of history, to know it personally, to speak from it like our lives depended on it, because it does. But still, we do not want liberation. We do not want our existence to come at the expense of other people. That is no way to live. And we call this out because this is exactly what this system of colonialism was built on. So when they launched this scurrilous attack on the chairman, and when I was just reading their so-called indictments and the things that they put out, it was done in a way that was, first of all, it's vicious and it's ruthless. And this is not a system that is built on justice. Sometimes the court systems, you might find justice happening sometimes, but it's not built on that. It's built on the United States government just being able to utilize the power to come after whomever they want. They don't need evidence. They don't need truth. They don't need any of that. They can just do it. But the indictment and things were written in such a way as to disempower Black people, to disempower the chairman, to disempower our movement, and to, it was also a psychological attack, because everything that has ever been told about our existence, that's ever been told through this system of colonization, has always been told to disempower everything about our existence, to subjugate us, and to sit there and to say that basically that Amalia Yeshitela and the Uhuru movements are basically puppets for the Russian government is just ludicrous. But also they say in that the Amalia Yeshitela, that the African People's Socialist Party were charged with sowing discord within the United States. Now imagine that, speaking out against being murdered, speaking out against the continued repression of your people, speaking out against officers being able to just blow your community's brains out at will and being able to get away with it. That if you speak against that, you are sowing discord within the United States, because what they are saying is that is how it is supposed to be. And that is what they expect of us. I was also reading what the Department of Justice was saying about this. And they were accusing Chairman Amalia Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party. I'm with the Black is Back Coalition, but it's all a part of the Uhuru Movement. And they were saying that they were accusing them of interfering with elections, and what they did was ran candidates on a platform of Black liberation. And the Black is Back Coalition, we had started these campaign schools, and that was one of the suggestions by Chairman Amalia Yeshitela. But of course, we were aligned with it. It was just perfect, and that's what we began to do. We began to have these electoral campaign schools in which we said, here's how you want revolution on the ballot, you put it there. You run candidates who are going to be strong enough to stand up behind these revolutionary principles. We put forward the 19-point platform for Black self-determination. Of course, I don't remember all of these points, but they are definitely revolutionary. The thing about when Black people rise up, we lift all boats for everyone, because implementing these principles would also just be something that everybody in the society could benefit from. One of the things I know is like nationalizing the banks and universal health care and these kind of things. And so, and it was also putting reparations on the forefront of everything that we were going to do if you're going to run candidates. And so that year, or maybe it was the next year, Sister Akile and Anai, whom we just heard from, and Jesse Neville, they ran a brilliant campaign. And although they didn't win, but they were very effective because they ran a campaign around reparations. Reparations was the central key. And Jesse Neville happens to be white. And Sister Akile, they ran this campaign. They ended up making international news. And that was the first time that the issue of reparations was central to an electoral campaign. And then after that, we see Marion Williamson, about 4 or 5 years later, then she runs on the campaign of reparations. But I know that the campaign that Sister Akile and that Brother Jesse Neville ran on did make international news and, went viral and everything. And so they're saying that that's interfering with elections. This is coming from the Democratic Party, Joe Biden. And the message that they are putting out there is just, it's disgraceful, but it's what they've always done. There is so much history, and I'm going to encourage people to, to look at this. We put together like a collection of suggested readings, and I can make sure that Angelica, that you all get this afterwards, but it just shows the way the FBI, the way the United States government has always criminalized every aspect of Black life, and gone after entertainers, bookstores, the library actions of people, everything, every aspect of Black existence, they've always criminalized, they've always gone after, and they've always used that against many of our contemporary freedom fighters that, they are Russian agents, from Paul Robeson. The list goes on and on and on. And they've always done this. So this is just about the criminalization of our resistance. That's what they've always done. Well, the Black is Back Coalition and our march on the White House that we've been holding every year since the formation of the Black is Back Coalition, we deliberately chose November. We deliberately chose around that time, which I think usually happens right before elections, because we want to give a message. We don't care who's in that White House. We are not stopping. We are building, and we feel it is so important to give that message, and now more so than ever. And I'm just so proud of the history of the Black is Back Coalition, and of course the Uhuru Movement, because you will see if you just look at our history, you look at our statements, you look at a lot of the political talks that the chairman has done, you will see that we have always been involved in these issues. So this is not just, because, the chairman is now personally under attack, that we want to, build such a strong movement around all these issues. We've always been doing that, always. And we definitely need people to come out November 4th. And I just have to also say that I remember when September 11th happened, and of course that was a devastating day. I worked right around the corner from the World Trade Center, and I would be coming into those buildings exactly at the time when those planes hit, and I didn't go to work that day. That's the only reason I wasn't there. But of course, it was so personal to me, because I'm thinking that I'm seeing a lot of people that I know be murdered. It was really, just horrible. But I didn't want it, but it's even far more painful to see what has happened since that time. To know that there's maybe about 4 million people killed by the United States and their immoral wars, and to see the people just not care. I will never forget that march that they had, or that demonstration that they had in New York City, when they thought that, when people were not sure whether or not there was going to be a draft, but there were like about 1 million people on the street. And to see that number dwindle down to just such a small, minuscule number of people, and to see that people in the United States basically just have aligned themselves around the the Democrats or the Republicans who are both pro-war. We have to take control of this situation. We've got to create the world the way we want it to be, and not accept what is going on, not accept it. So this is a chance to come out. And what kind of time do I have?
No, you are out of time. Sorry.
Sorry, I
But
gotta
you're
read
great.
the demands, but please go read the demands on
Maybe
the
we can have a
website.
second round afterwards.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Lisa. I definitely appreciate that call for people to register now if you have not already, and we can relink the blackpeoplesmarch.com. And again, I think all of the St. Louis Green Party unites with the call from yourself and from Akile to end the oppression of all people, and that requires not reforming but ending colonialism, and hearing about how consistent that fight has been from the Black is Back coalition. So thank you again. And we will now hear from our next speaker, Len Demmer, who will talk about the importance of white people's solidarity with Black African struggle for liberation and self-determination. Len is the chair of the St. Louis branch of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, as well as the chair of USM's International Recruitment and Membership Office. Len is from Philadelphia, where he became active in the Uhuru Solidarity Movement's anti-colonial work in 2020, and has been building white solidarity with Black power under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party in St. Louis since 2021. He's currently involved in building for the St. Louis March for Reparations, which will take place Saturday and Sunday, October 21st and 22nd. Len, thank you for participating, and if you can please also give us a little bit of background about what led you to the Uhuru Movement.
Uhuru. Thank you so much, Lauren. And I just really want to salute and thank the Green Party for having me on this webinar this evening, and just really salute to you, Angelica, for putting this together. And yeah, just really amazing presentations by Lisa Davis and by Director Akile. Yeah, I got into this organization as a trans man. Queer rights has always been something that has been part of my identity, I guess. And, it wasn't really until George Floyd was murdered in 2020 and the uprisings of African people that I really saw the clear line that was defined of, I was going to these protests, but then just coming home, and the conditions of African people weren't changing. And I was searching for something else that I could do, and I couldn't find answers anywhere, not in the Black Lives Matter movement, not in the Democratic Party or voting independent. I was really having a hard time finding a way to be a part of really genuinely being in solidarity with overturning this parasitic system. And in 2020, I saw Chairman Amalia Shatella, along with Jesse Neville and Penny Hess, two leaders of the Solidarity Movement, speak on a convention of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and really just united with everything that I heard. And I had never really thought of colonialism in that way. It's always, we're just taught, it's drilled into our heads. It's like racism, it's fighting against people who hate, it's fight, stuff like that. And it was like there's racism, and then there's fighting for queer rights and reproductive rights, and there was just all these different things, the environment, and it was really overwhelming. And it wasn't until I heard from Chairman Amalia Shatella, who really broke down African internationalism, really describing that all of the issues and all oppression that exists around the world, its fundamental contradiction is colonialism. And that was the first time that I had ever heard that before. And it really just made a lot of sense to me. And so as a queer person, a trans person, I believe that my liberation as well can be found in the African liberation. When this entire system that has been built on the backs of African people is overturned, when African people have power and all oppressed people have power again, it will do nothing but break this parasitic relationship that exists. So I just, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me that that is where I would find, my freedom and in standing, in solidarity under the leadership of the African working class. So yeah, thank you for that question. I really appreciate that, Lauren. I have a really brief PowerPoint that I would like to just share with everybody. So I'm just going to share this real quick. So like everybody probably knows, I am the St. Louis branch chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. I'm also the international recruitment and membership coordinator of the international Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And Uhuru, it means freedom in Swahili. So we're literally an organization, part of the Freedom Solidarity Movement under the leadership of the Uhuru Movement, of the Freedom Movement. And I just really want to salute our leadership, who is the African working class, the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Yeshitela, who have really been fighting relentlessly for over 50 years in fighting for the liberation and unification of Africa and African people around the world. And, the chairman created the Uhuru Solidarity Movement as a way for white people to really take a genuine stand in solidarity with the right for African self-determination and the right for African people to fight for their own liberation, and created the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. So we have this amazing building on the south side on Gravois, the Uhuru Solidarity Center, where we work out of. It's the offices for our different solidarity organizations, and it's where we have local events. We always have local events there. It's where we have our local meetings on Tuesdays at 6:30. And it is a building owned by the African People's Socialist Party. And it's amazing working out of that building because, it's part of the front of the Black liberation movement in the white community. So it's just really powerful being there and really historic being there. Come by anytime, you can't miss it. It's just right on Gravois. And of course, as everybody knows, that the FBI raided the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru Movement on July 29th. And it was these really vicious raids and these attacks on the Black liberation movement to try to, like Director Akile said, isolate the Black liberation movement like they did in the 1960s. And, I am calling on all white people in this meeting and outside of this meeting to really take a stand against that. And of course, now in April, the Chairman Omali Yeshitela, along with Chair Jesse Neville and Chairwoman Penny Hess, have been indicted by the U.S. government on these bogus charges of being Russian agents. And so, the fight back of the African People's Socialist Party, part of the fight back has been, creating the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, which now they have this Hands Off Uhuru coalition, which is a coalition of, over 45 different organizations that have all come together in solidarity, to fight against FBI repression and to fight against colonialism. And this is all leading us to the Black People's March on the White House on November 4th. That is being hosted by the Black is Back coalition. And so I'm really calling on white people to come to this march on November 4th, get on the bus. There's actually going to be some buses leaving from St. Louis, which I'll get to in a minute, but it's really, really critical that white people come out in huge numbers to support this Black People's March in the White House, and to do what we failed to do in the 1960s, and which is stand in genuine solidarity with the African liberation movement and to join the fight back against repression. When the U.S. government unleashed its full spectrum war on the leaders of the Black Revolution in the 60s, white people literally abandoned the movement. They abandoned the field of struggle and we returned to our safe place on the pedestal within the colonial capitalist establishment. As Chairman Omali Yeshitela has said, that white people, we got haircuts, we took a bath and got a job. And there was no organized popular response from the white community then. And there were just constant assassinations and raids and just mass arrests, mass incarceration, political imprisonment of so many different African leaders by the FBI and other police agencies. And instead, white people became like peace activists, or walking over the bodies of dead Black revolutionaries to protest, the Vietnam War, or to form opportunistic social movements for white women's liberation and white LGBTQ equality on the backs of the defeated Black revolution. And so now that Chairman Omali Yeshitela has created a space, a place for white people to be in solidarity, genuine solidarity with the African Revolution under the leadership of oppressed people. This is where we need to be now. We need to really demand reparations for the African working class. We need to demand and recognize that, that we sit on land that is stolen from indigenous people, and we continue to benefit from this system of oppression that is in place for all of these years. So coming to this march, you'll be joining hundreds of organizations that are going to be there, standing up in front of the White House, demanding that the FBI drop the charges on the African People's Socialist Party, on the Uhuru Three, and that demand the right for not just free speech for African people, free speech for everybody, but free speech and self-determination for the Black working class. That is what the demand is. So if you all go to tinyurl.com/marchonwhitehouse, you can find out more information there. So white people, join us as the reparations contingent at the Black People's March on the White House, November 4th. We went last year. It was amazing, holding up these signs. It was just so powerful, just marching down towards the White House. And, this year it's going to be even more powerful because of the political circumstances and just all of the solidarity that will be there. It's going to be a very powerful march. And if you are in St. Louis, which I think most of you are, we will be having a few buses that are leaving from St. Louis to drive to Washington, D.C. You can fill out a form at tinyurl.com/GOTB, get on the bus 2023, GOTB 2023, and reserve your spot on the bus. And there you'll just get more information about like pricing and stuff. And I think everybody's going to be staying in like a hotel overnight. And it's reasonable. It's price-wise, it's reasonable, and it's worth it. Definitely get your spot on that bus. And all of this, leading up to this march in November, is the March for Reparations to African People, which we have been building relentlessly for. This will be happening on Saturday, October 21st at 1 p.m. And we're going to be meeting at the Carpenter Branch Public Library, which is on Grand Boulevard, followed by a rally at Tower Grove Park at the Old Carriage Pavilion. So we'll be meeting at the library, marching to Tower Grove, going to the Old Carriage Pavilion. There'll be like a rally with speakers, solidarity speakers, some culture. And then on that Sunday, there will be a reparations conference, Sunday, October 22nd at 1 p.m. And this will be held at the Uhuru Solidarity Center, 2654 Gravois. You saw a picture of it earlier. And you can get your spot for that at stlouisreparations.eventbrite.com. And I really want to call on everyone to come out to these marches and get revved up for November 4th. These will just be ways for us to get more excited about the amazing movement that is taking place, the mass movement of white people who no longer want to be the puppets of colonialism, of our white ruling class. So come out to the March for Reparations. And let's see, there was one other thing I was going to say here. Yeah. So this is literally history, continuing history in the making. So the March for Reparations used to be called the March Against Genocide, and the first one was held in 1979. So by coming to, the March for Reparations this year on the 21st of October, and coming to the Black People's March in the White House, white people standing in solidarity with Black liberation, this is part of history. So, you really want to be there and, just show the US government that they cannot use us as their lynch mob, not this time like they did. So I just want to really shout out all of our our endorsers for our March for Reparations this year. We have the Missourians to Abolish the Death Penalty, the St. Louis Green Party, who I just want to say has been a supporter for so long and speaks at our march every single year. So I just really want to salute the Green Party of St. Louis. The Green Party of Kansas City, Missouri Cure, Homes for All, Freedom Road, Socialist Organization, Committee to Stop FBI Repression, Jesse Todd, the People's Alderman, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, the St. Louis Interfaith Committee on Latin America, and the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And like I said, come out to the march, stlouisreparations.eventbrite.com, really be a part of this history and, take a stand and say, no more genocide in my name. If you're a white person, come out and take a stand, stlouisreparations.eventbrite.com. And just to say that this is all part of a national campaign that is going on right now, part of the Days of Reparations to African People. So right now, Chairman Amalia Shatella, along with some other Uhuru leaders, are on this tour across the United States. They just spoke in Oakland and San Francisco. They're making their way down the West Coast to San Diego. They're going to be speaking, and all of this is to raise $30,000 towards Black Star Industries, which is the African People's Socialist Party's liberated anti-colonial economy that is, literally building institutions and programs that are directly contending with colonial capitalism. Some of the programs are, let's see here. So the One Africa, One Nation markets, including the Farmers Market, the Black Power Blueprint, which is here in North St. Louis, Decolonize Hair and Body, Uhuru Planet Reparations Apparel, Uhuru Foods and Pies, the Burning Spear media, which includes like the amazing Burning Spear newspaper, which is over 50 years old in print, and so much more, that is really just building political and economic power in the hands of the African working class. So I'm just going to stop my screen there and just thanks everybody so much. And don't forget to come out to the march. And if you have any questions, feel free to email info@uhurusolidarity.org. Uhuru, thank you.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Len. That was, an incredibly energizing call for participation. And I just wanted to say, really, we've heard 3 such strong presentations about the history of colonial oppression on Black liberation and what's happening now, and also a directive for the future of how we can participate to achieve that revolutionary future that you've all talked about. So this has been amazing. We're going to go ahead and open up the program now to take comments and questions. So a lot of links have been dropped in the chat. We'd encourage people to look into those and, of course, to register. But we'd like to see if anyone would like to ask a question to the speakers or make a comment. Please put that in the chat if you would like to. And if you would like to make a solidarity statement on behalf of an organization, please put that in as well. We'll give a minute or so to check the chat and see what comes through here. Maybe in the meanwhile, while we're checking on that, I'd like to see if Lisa or Akile would like to make a comment now that we've heard all 3 presentations. Anything that you would like to add?
I would just like to briefly just go over some of the demands. I won't read like the full statements of them, but these are like points of unity and the demands that the Fightback Coalition, and the Fightback Coalition is sponsoring the Black People's March on the White House with the Black is Back Coalition this year, and we unite behind these demands as well. But the Hands Off Uhuru and Fightback Coalition demands that all charges be dropped for the Uhuru 3, and that all of those targeted and politically imprisoned by the U.S. colonial state that free all political prisoners, and that these charges be dropped. We defend the democratic right of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Movement to advocate and organize for the total liberation, reunification, and self-determination of all of Africa and all African people worldwide. We denounce all FBI, U.S. government raids, politically motivated indictments, arrests, surveillance, slander, and attacks against the African Black liberation movement, as well as against all anti-colonial movements. and social justice, anti-war, anti-imperialist, and free speech organizations and movements as exemplified by the attacks on the Stock City protesters and the Tampa Five. We demand the right to freedom of speech and freedom of assembly to struggle for all people. We demand the release of all political prisoners, including Leonard Peltier, Jalil Al-Amin, Mumia Abu-Jamal, Ed Poindexter, and many others. Drop all charges against Assad Shakur as well. We demand that all candidates and political parties contesting in the 2024 presidential and other elections adopt the demand to drop the charges on the Uhuru 3 and other targeted organizations, whistleblowers, and individuals. We demand an end to all U.S. government attacks on Mexican, Navajo, and other indigenous peoples, occupied Palestinian people, the Filipino people, African people in Haiti, Alex Saab, and the people of Venezuela, and an end to the blockade on Cuba, and demand the lift on travel bans and the designation of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism, and we demand the immediate cessation of U.S. funding of the war in Ukraine, and that the billions of dollars being spent for that carnage be paid toward the long overdue reparations demand by Black people.
Uhuru, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
We've got a question from Digger in the chat here. Are there any more court dates set for the Uhuru 3? What is coming up next in this trial? I'm wondering if any of the speakers would like to comment on that.
Well, yes, I can speak to that a little bit, just in that we don't have a court date, another court date set yet. The trial, if there is going to be a trial, as we've heard, is supposed to take place or begin in February of 2024, so just within a matter of months. And the oral arguments that took place on September 28th, we don't have a timeline. They don't give a timeline of when they will have their final decision. So we could hear something as early as tomorrow, or over the next couple of months, but it would obviously need to be determined before we would go to trial. But if the case is not dismissed, then we will have more updates regarding when official court dates are, and things like that. So, but just have the expectation of February or early 2024 when that process would start. But of course, we will keep everybody updated as much as possible.
Thank you for that update. I'd like to take a second to thank Angelica from the St. Louis Green Party for putting this together and for all of her tremendous work. Angie, if you'd like to make a comment.
Well, I only wanted to basically reiterate, kind of the information for people who want to get on the bus, transportation. But I would like to do that at the end. If there are any other, kind of content question in regards to what has been, elaborated on, then I think we should do that first.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for pointing out, Joe. Lisa, it looks like your hand is raised.
Oh, yes, thank you. But of course, if other people have comments, I would, defer to them first. So I want to make sure. Okay, so I just want to ask Sister Akile something a moment. Also, I just want to make people aware that they're facing 10 to 15 years in prison. So, these charges are scurrilous and ruthless, but so is the U.S. government, and they are facing 10 to 15 years. So that's just how important this case is. But also, Sister Akile, I was wondering if you could respond to this, and you may have touched on this, but I was reading that this is the first time that they are using the charges of not registering as I guess like a foreign agent or an agent for a foreign government to attack something like freedom of speech. Did you want to just comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, I can do my best while trying to decipher like legalese, but this is something that has certainly been summed up and by our attorneys themselves, and was actually stated in the court, that this is the first time, this charge has been seen used to target protected activity, free speech activity. And the prosecutors, themselves didn't even attempt to really argue that if we had just filled out information or filled out an application to be able to say the things that we say, then we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have this problem. And so that was the only argument that they were making, and that they are trying to say that all of this work that the party has done, which is again supposed to be protected activity under the First Amendment, work that the party has done for decades, including tours that talk about reparations, just like the one we're on right now, talking about raising up the question of genocide, just as we're doing right now, having this discussion, running for office and all of these things without ever having needed, evidence to show some kind of contractual agreement to be an agent, for the Russian government, never having any ounce of evidence of that, but just identifying or publishing articles in the Burning Spear newspaper that have these positions that Russia might like. This is something, when you look at the history of the Burning Spear newspaper and how we have used this tool to be critical of every, war that the U.S. Government is responsible for, engages in. We've been critical of, the whole colonial world, system. This is what the Spear has done for since 1969 when it was founded. So they have used all of this as the quote unquote evidence, the overt action, when there really is no action. But this is what they're saying serves as the evidence of us, working for the Russian government. And so yes, this is the first time that they've used this, I think it's USC 951 charge to target political speech. And this is, again, it was like their argument was so weak. It was weak as water. And our attorneys ended up saying, like if it was just like a matter of filling out a form to be able to say these things, which is also technically unconstitutional to have to register to say, and express your own beliefs. But that then what was the purpose of raids? What was the purpose of a flashbang grenade? What was the purpose of handcuffing and zip tying, people, and telling them to sit on the curb? What is the drones and the theft of all of our materials? What's all of this for? If it was just as simple as filing some kind of form with the Attorney General. So that's, what I can say, just trying to decipher again some of that that legalese, the language and what it is. But again, it's this cover. It's using the law to make a political assault on our movement without saying we're attacking the party because they're fighting for the liberation of Black people. Like, they can't say that. So they say that we violated some kind of law that they've made up, and then they fabricate these charges. And what our attorneys, said by the end was that if the judge follows the law, their own law, we didn't write the law, but if they followed their own law, then they would need to dismiss this case. They have no case.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I can give, people who do want to go to Washington, D.C. By bus, just a little information. So you got the link in the chat in regards to where to register, and it's important to do this as soon as possible for the organizers to know how many people will be needing transportation, and about the hotel accommodation. So from St. Louis, it's not only about the people from St. Louis, because even if you're from a different place, you will be able to get information by using this link. You will be able to get information will be connected to what is going on in your area, and how to get in touch with people who are in your area if you want to take car transportation. So from St. Louis, we will have like 3 passenger vans, depending on how many people will be registering. And so like the van will be from St. Louis will be costing $200 per person. And then, you know, there is hotel rooms will be, you know, they are already reserved. People have the choice whether they want to have a single room or 2 people or 3 people or 4 people. I'm not going to all the details. You know, I will be sending an email around to everybody who was on this register for this call, and other people also, with all the details. But just, you know, the reminder, please make up your mind as soon as, or make arrangements as soon as possible, so the organizers will be able to know, you know, what to expect and how to best get all this, you know, done.
Thank you, Angie. I don't see anything else in the chat, so I'd just like to open it up one more time and see if anyone else would like to ask a question or make a comment.
I just want to say that I put the links to the motion to dismiss and you know, the government's answer. That will just contain so much information, too, very important information, you know, that people can should know about. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you. Well, thank you everyone for attending this program. It's been fantastic to hear all of these details, and we hope to see everyone at the march on November 4th.
And I just want to give a shout out to the Green Party in New Jersey. In fact, I just became a member of the Green Party because of Cornel West and the opportunity to vote for him in their primaries. But anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to some of my comrades in New Jersey who are members of the Green Party who have also been very supportive. Barry Bender is one of them, Bob Botanic. So.
Wonderful. Thank you.